Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Fields, and for my literacy review assignment, I decided to focus on improving comprehension in secondary education. Two main reasons why I decided to do this. One, because I am a high school math teacher. This is something I think I could carry over into my class. And two, because I feel like a lot of the readings and coursework that we do in this certification program is really focused on early education. So I wanted to kind of explore that secondary education setting and see what's out there in terms of reading comprehension. So we know that early learners struggle to read, but that does carry over as they get older into that secondary education setting. So I came across some facts that I thought were pretty alarming. Give you guys a little bit of time to read them. Trying to keep this a little shorter, so I don't want to go through and read all of them. But I will read that first one that stuck out to me. Roughly 61% of 8th and 12th grade students with disabilities read below basic level, which is definitely pretty alarming. So that kind of led me to asking, well, why are adolescent learners reading levels so low, and especially students with learning disabilities? One reason is because they could be victims of poor early reading instruction. Not providing the correct reading instruction at those early ages obviously will then carry on when they get into their middle school and high school years. Students with learning disabilities also continue to struggle into their middle school and high school years. Now, the reason why I put that is because in the early levels or the early setting, they might have that really intensive instruction on improving those reading skills. But then when you get into the middle school and high school setting, now the teachers are really focused on teaching content and driving content to the kids. So that time that was spent in the early education settings on reading skills might be lost in the middle school and high schools. So they are still struggling, but they don't continually get to improve those skills. So I know there's a bunch of reading skills like fluency, vocabulary, but I decided to focus on comprehension. And comprehension is really just making sense of what is being read. In order to be able to comprehend a text, you have to self monitor your reading and use repair skills throughout the reading. And then something that's really important in secondary education is being able to compare comprehension strategies with content instruction. And I think that's where we as teachers need to do a little bit better of a job. So here's some strategies that help improve comprehension. I'm sure many of you have already heard of these strategies. I just wanted to list them out really quick. So one was activating prior knowledge. So by connecting a student's prior knowledge to new text will help them understand the text. Graphic organizers can be used, such as Venn diagrams and different things like that, to make predictions before reading, summarize, and record important information while they're reading. Also can help at the end of reading. And then direct and explicit instruction when teaching these comprehension strategies are extremely important, especially scaffolding. So for us as teachers, like modeling, then doing everything together, and then allowing the kids to do it individually. So there are two strategies that I decided to focus on in order to improve comprehension in the secondary education setting. And the first one is called an anticipation guide. Now, the anticipation guide is a type of graphic organizer, but it's something that I never heard of before, which is why I wanted to focus on it. So the anticipation guide activates a student's prior knowledge before reading and aids in the comprehension during reading and after reading. The objective is to have the students actively engage in the activities that promote discussion and differences of views or beliefs that may challenge their own. So to sum up what the anticipation guide is the teacher wants to present different ideas, or it could even be, like different ideas that relate to the passage, but they're very vague. So they're not ideas that are directly from the text, but more vague ideas that are related to it. So the teacher presents those ideas, and then the students write responses on those ideas. and they anticipate those ideas. And then they talk about their views, and they have class discussions, and hopefully there are multiple views or multiple perspectives in the class, and they get to see all different perspectives. Then the student goes through and reads the text, and while reading the text, they're able to reevaluate their responses to those vague ideas that was presented by the teacher. And then at the end of the text, have another class discussion about if they changed their ideas, if they, by revisiting while the text was going on, did they change anything? Did they keep anything the same? How do they feel? And things like that. It's just a good way of getting these students to relate the text to their knowledge, again, using a graphic organizer. At the bottom of this slide, there's also those 6 steps that can help teachers create anticipation guides for their class. The other tool that I decided to focus on, or strategy, is called a double entry journal. So this is, again, is another graphic organizer that I ended up researching that I did not hear before. So what a double entry journal is students are, while they're reading, to identify important quotes in the text and explain the quote's meaning and why it might be of importance. So the objective for this is students to practice interpreting textual information to develop reading comprehension. And it improves their ability to read closely, synthesize, analyze, and identify important information. Now, when doing this, it is important that scaffolding takes place, especially when identifying quotations, important quotations. So we need to be able to present to students what makes an important quotation, why a quotation might be important, and how we know that. So when students are picking out their important quotations, one thing that is helpful for teachers to do is provide sentence starters. So that last bullet point, teachers can provide sentence starters such as "this reminds me of." So students are going to pick out a quotation, and then depending on the sentence starter, look at that quotation and try to connect it to some background knowledge that they previously have. Again, this one is really for during and after the reading. And then, of course, they can have class, small group, or partner discussions about this stuff as well. So a big question that I was kind of thinking of the entire time while reading through all of these comprehension skills and thinking about being in a secondary setting is, are secondary teachers really prepared to teach this? Now, I know from my personal experience, being a math teacher in college when I attended Widener, it was really more focused on the content. So it was really focused on the mathematics and how to teach that mathematics. We didn't really get much exposure to teaching reading skills to our kids as well. And I found an article that really sums up pretty much everything that was a big question of mine. If secondary teachers really are prepared and can teach reading skills if they're not English teachers. So the article that I found says, and again, this was my personal experience, that secondary teachers preparation has focused on teachers becoming content experts. And also in secondary education, it can be very challenging to provide intensive reading instruction while keeping the students on pace in the content area and keeping the credits they need to graduate. So the article that I found really focused on 2 different things, or they did a study to focus on 2 different questions. And it was, what reading skills do secondary special education teachers focus on and teach, and what literacy preparation experiences do second general education teachers report? So what I found interesting is that roughly 70% of special education teachers taught vocab and comprehension, and 50% taught fluency and phonics. I actually thought those would be a little bit higher. And as far as general education teachers, I found that 43% reported 0 hours of reading skills professional development. And that's in the last 2 years when they did this study. So I think it's pretty alarming that almost nearly 50% experienced no hours in professional development to improve reading skills in the students. So that kind of leads me to the more research that has to be done. And I think it is on those strategies, but overall, I think the first thing is that research or more implementation needs to be done to teach secondary education teachers how to teach reading skills such as comprehension. Um, Feeling unprepared will not enable us to teach those reading skills that our students need to be successful. In terms of specifically the two strategies and tools that I focused on, how can these strategies be implemented in other content-based classes? So how can I use this in my math class? How can this be used in a science class? And high school, they have electives. How can this be used in an accounting class? How can it be used in a business class? The article that I found did say it was successful, but it would be nice to see maybe how can that specifically be directed to those content-based classes. What are some ways that this can be adapted to meet all learners' needs? I know my classes, they are mostly all inclusive, and I have students with 504s or IEPs in there as well. So how can I use these and modify them enough where I'm pushing the students that need to be pushed, but I'm not rushing along the students that really need to develop these skills? And then this isn't really research, but just kind of more of a view of mine is there needs to be a district or school-wide emphasis on teaching reading comprehension among all content areas. So I think with that emphasis coming down from the district or the administration at your school, I think we'll see more content area teachers really try to collaborate with the English teachers and other teachers and work together to teach reading comprehension skills in their classroom. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to listening to all of yours as well.